welcome back. Let's talk about the economy. Yes, elections are very important because whoever you choose as a leader will then be the manager of the economy. Well, recently the World Bank yet again said, well, the estimate of poor in Nigeria is 139 million, saying that a lot more people have been pushed into poverty as a result of some of the policies of government. Yes, it did say that things are stabilizing, but the government needs to do more to ensure that a lot more people are pulled out of poverty, which some of these policies pushed them into. Well, the presidency responded and said, well, that figure is unrealistic and it's disconnected from the country's actual economic condition. So there's been that back and forth about what the poverty figure is. Some weeks back, former statistician General Yemi Kale had said, well, 89 million, and that is big, second in the world in that sense. And the presidency again came and said, no, that's not the case. It's about 71 million based on the poverty clock. But I think everyone agrees that we have a huge burden of the poor in the country, a lot of them as a result of not just COVID-19, but the recent economic policies of this government. So what must we do, which I think is the important part of the conversation, to ensure we pull people out of poverty while we debate the figures, 71, 89, 139. What must be done? We're joined on the program this morning by former DG of Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, who's now founder and CEO of Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise, Dr. Muda Yusuf. Good morning. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Kari. Good morning.
Good morning. I know you've been watching all of the back and forth, and this is a conversation I think we've had time and again. So since the figure is a big contention, because it looks like nobody has really gone to the field to measure, what we're relying on is estimates, either estimates from previous MBS data, estimates from World Bank data. So we're clear they're estimates. But we know that we have a huge burden of poor people in Nigeria. First, where do you stand on the figures? More importantly, where do you stand on the policy direction to pull people out of poverty?
Well, thank you, Kari. I think first is to do a proper review of those numbers. We must interrogate the methodology, because there are all manner of metrics that are used to determine who is poor, who is extremely poor, multidimensional poverty. Yeah. There are so many terminologies around it. So we need to understand the methodology that has been used by the World Bank, for instance, because what the World Bank just told us was that 139 million people
are estimated.
So I think it is the methodology that will guide us. Because, context also matters. What we regard as poverty maybe in Europe or in US may not be exactly the same metric that will apply in this environment. So the context of each country or the context of economies also matter. So it's a big issue that we need to study properly before we can come to a consensus as to what exactly the figures should be. But having said that, I agree with you that poverty is a major issue. And unfortunately, in an attempt to fix a broken economy, we had policies which were inevitable anyway, that has created more poverty problems. But as without holding brief for the president, he said it severally, that if there are other ways of addressing this broken economy without creating this kind of hardship, he will have adopted those approaches. But there was no other way, because we have an economy that was at the brink. We had a foreign exchange system that has become dysfunctional. We have a subsidy regime that was bleeding the economy. We had a financing system that led to printing of money to support the fiscal position of government. So a lot of things were falling apart. So what I will say is that we need to recognize the inevitability of those policies. And we also need to appreciate that those policies have significant social costs, which is what has led to this poverty issue. But the point to make is that, yes, these policies have created this problem. We can debate the numbers. But because The economy is highly sensitive, particularly from an inflation point of view. Sensitive to foreign exchange development, which is one of the key issues that the reform affected.
Yeah.
Sensitive to energy costs, which is also one of the key issues that the reforms affected. So that has affected the purchasing power of the people. And for those who are fixed income earners, if your income is fixed and prices had gone up by 200, 300%, that means your real income had collapsed by almost 30% or so.
Indeed.
That's a major issue. And we have salary earners in that category. We have pensioners in that category. We have even people who are unemployed in that category. Only a few segments of the society had the privilege of an inflation-adjusted income. Maybe in the financial services sector, maybe even in the other segments of the economy, where their income, by virtue of the activities they engage in, had been adjusted to reflect the inflation. So it's a major issue.
Indeed.
So for me, I think what is important at this point is not so much about the numbers, is to begin to look at the next phase of what the reform should be. The first phase, for me, is about stabilizing the macroeconomic environment, which the World Bank also acknowledged. A lot of stabilization has taken place. The next stage is about accelerating growth, and not just growth, a growth that is inclusive and a growth that will reduce poverty. So we need to come up with a combination of policies that will address the challenges of growth, the challenges of inclusive growth, and more importantly, the challenges of addressing the cost of living. So that is the way I will look at this.
Quite a job of work. It's quite instructive what you said about the definition of poverty, because multidimensional also comes in terms of access to healthcare, education, and all of that. That is at 133 million. Even in the US, their own poverty threshold is different, and even at that, they have about 11%. Poor people, 37 million people. But we know our own challenges. We know how we got here. And some of the points you made are important. Perhaps the wage adjustment will be important to a lot of Nigerians watching right now. Because some of them, what they were earning in, let's say, maybe 10 or more years ago, or even less, is, although it is less than what they're earning right now as a result of increase, but in terms of value, what they were earning then is more than what they are earning now, in terms of what it can really purchase.
It's a very big
issue. A very tricky one. But another flip side to this conversation then is what we've seen play out in recent times, and what a lot of people have just put in the box of protecting investment and investors in Nigeria. One of the biggest investments in the country came under threat of late as a result of union issues, Pengasan and Dangote matter. And just of late, we had some prominent Nigerians who putting up a statement saying, you know what, Dangote must be protected at all costs. A lot of people have also said the workers must be protected at all costs. So it's always been that back and forth. But we see that there is a direct correlation between investment, job creation, and getting people out of poverty. It's a very interesting link. So I wonder, for you, seeing all of the things playing out, particularly for investment, what are your expectations from government to approach this investment matter? Because we know it creates jobs, which then empowers people to get out of poverty.
Yeah, I think what is important is to ensure a balance between the interests of employees or workers and the interests of investors. That balance is key. Secondly, is to ensure that we have a labor union system that acts with a better sense of proportionality. And what I mean by that is that if there are disputes, responses should be proportional to the disputes, not responses that will go overboard and disrupt the entire investment or disrupt the entire economy. I think that sense of responsibility, I think we need to amplify it. And we need to define boundaries as to how far unions can go, particularly when they are interfacing or when they are in strategic sectors that could cripple the entire economy. that thing is that clarity must be there, you know. Then secondly is to ensure and to also understand that without investment there cannot be workers, there cannot be employees. And we also need to understand that if anything goes wrong with an investment, the employees will walk away. It is the investor that will carry the cross. So the investor even have a much bigger stake. And investors are critical when we talk about growing the economy. It is investment that grows the economy. When you talk about generating revenue, it is investors that will create the wealth, that will pay the taxes, that will generate the revenue. When you talk about job creation, it is those who are investing that will create the jobs. So they have a very big role to play, and the government needs to ensure that you have the right kind of framework to ensure effective investor or investment protection. Protection from arbitrariness of trade unions, where sometimes they don't have boundaries in the way they function. Protection from arbitrariness of regulatory agencies. Protection from even our judicial system. When there are commercial disputes and things to settle, what kind of judicial system or dispute resolution mechanism do we have that will not frustrate investors? Protection from our even security agencies. Sometimes you see the way some of these security agencies harass people on the road. Some of them, even at night, you see them carrying guns. They have put on some jackets to even cover their names. You don't know who they are. You don't know where they are coming from. Some of them, even the plate numbers on their vehicles are not even visible. But because they are carrying guns, they intimidate all manner of people. A lot of that happens on Lagos roads here. So these things are critical for investors. So I think we need that kind of framework, because without investment, the economy cannot go anywhere. And we also need protection from the bureaucrats, the bureaucracy. Now we are in an economy where we are trying to transit from import dependence to self-reliance, which is very critical for any country. But we have bureaucrats who have enjoyed the regime of importation, the regime of undue bureaucracy, approvals here and there, who don't want to let go.
All right.
So all of these things are critical if you want this economy to make progress.
And it goes across board, as you've said. They are the big investors, and they're the smaller investors also experience these things that you talk about. So all of these things add up, and then we wonder, why aren't we creating as much jobs? Why are businesses closing? I hear that 50% of these businesses close before 5 years. And some of these things add up to the big picture.
And even sometimes for SMEs, some of their biggest headaches are the employees. Many employees have wrecked a lot of entrepreneurs.
You can say that again, Dr. Yusuf. And that is a headache.
Issues.
I'm sure a lot of people are shaking their heads too right now. But it's important to raise these points, and we're glad we're able to raise them, because if we want to have a $1 trillion economy, these are the things we must pay attention to. Dr. Yusuf, thank you for your time and interventions. Always good to speak to you and see you again, the founder and CEO of the CPP. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Kari.
We'll take a moment now, and when we return, the Super Eagles are playing an all-important match today. We'll get a sense of what's happening with the coach, the captain, and Cecilia in a moment. Stay with us.